TRG, or the TR200G. This is a super popular trolling reel up in the Eastern Sierra. Lots of guides on Crowley use it, and they have a lot of success. Holds 10 colors of Leadcore. Super easy. We'll talk about that in a minute. Cheap, affordable, less than $100. You can get them online. Highly recommended, and it came recommended to me with a lot of fishing guides up in the area. So, two types of Leadcore line now. The 832 is the new. This one is thin, pretty good. Light action has really begun to change the trolling game. The one on the right is the older one. It's a thicker one. Those of you that have trolled Leadcore before, you know that braid comes off that lead, and you can break it, stick your mono in, and tie an overhand knot. Well, you can't do that with the new 836. So you got to actually, with your leader, use a couple knots, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But what's important, why I brought up the difference between these two, is if you're fishing two rods, you want to make sure you have the same line on each rod, because this one has a bigger width, and in turns and stuff, they go at different speeds, and you might run into some problems. So I experienced that a few times. So again, the new 832, white, super, love them both, and then the old school thicker suffix. All right. So we just picked these fluorocarbons. I'm an old traditional mono guy, but the last couple of years I have switched over to the Cedar monofilament. This is actually steelhead trout leader, but you can use any fluorocarbon. We recommend if you're trolling like an 8-pound to troll with. If you're casting, maybe a 4-pound. If there's bigger fish around, of course, a heavier leader. We recommend from 8 to 30 feet. And the reason I say 30 feet is the owners of Ernie's Tackle Shop, he fishes with 30-foot leader. I'm around 12 to 15 foot. I've been successful as low as 6 feet, so it's really your preference. But to me, 30 feet really begins to create a bit of a problem. So I usually shoot for that 12 foot range. Okay, and these are the two knots we were talking about. Now that you can't really do it the old school way, slipping the mono into the braid, I've really begun to use the double uni knot. Super great knot. You can use it attaching any braid to any mono. It's a perfect knot for that. Even on the ocean, you know, guys are fishing braids with mono leaders, fluorocarbon leaders, all that. Same here in the fresh water. So that double uni knot is, and a great way to learn is just go to YouTube. There's 2 or 3 guys on YouTube. They just super explain it real fast, easy. A little bit of practice and you're good to go. Second one, guys have used for years on ocean trips, etc. The blood knot, same thing, super good for attaching a mono to a braided line. So again, YouTube is great. All right, so trolling, we'll talk a little bit about our swivels, lures, then we'll get into some water temperature, depth, and of course our drag settings. All right, so here's our barrel swivels. And these we specifically begun to test and test and test. We used the straight brass swivels as well. But we found this to be the most successful. Here's a little pack of them. We sell our own because we highly recommend it that you use our swivels with our baits. But they keep that swimming true, they keep that swimming accurate, and the swim motion is like this through the water. So we want to keep that clear, no line twisting, no line tightening, and it's been very successful. So we highly recommend that we sell those. Our lures, I have listed down here, Thomas Buoyant, Speedy Shiner, Neofish. Hey, they all catch fish, every one of them. But what makes ours different is these beautiful little clickers right here that just add a noise that we'll talk about in just a minute that really attacks the biology of a fish. So, not going to talk about any other lures. As a matter of fact, we started with the Thomas Buoyant, punched a couple holes in there, and bang. Okay, so trolling trout prefer, of course, 55 degrees. If you start getting up in the 60 range, trout will get a little sluggish, and fishing will be probably not as great. We recommend starting at 3 colors. I mentioned earlier that our reel. That this reel, the 200G, this will hold 10 10 colors of mono. That's usually how the packages come. Super easy. This one has 10 on it right now with the leader. But each color represents supposedly 10 foot of depth. It's not quite that if you're trolling, because you got to take into account the speed of the boat, but it's generally about 7 foot per color. So if you're fishing at 5 colors, you're at about 35 feet. So why is that important? It's super important because now we're going to get into the biology of the fish a little bit. Fish, and especially trout, don't see below. They only see ahead and above. So if you've got electronics on your boat and fish are showing at 30 feet and you're trolling at 40 feet, they're not seeing it. So we recommend you start really shallow, especially if you don't have electronics. We recommend you start shallow at 3 colors and see what happens. If no action, drop down a little, but you definitely don't want to be below them. It's safe, stay above, make sure they can see it. The speed I troll at is 3 miles an hour, but we recommend, especially our downrigger guys, we recommend a 1.5 or anywhere in that range, wherever you're comfortable. Hey, fish are fast. When they're hungry and they see bait fish, 3 miles per hour is nothing. But it gets our clickers really rolling, and we love that. So here's an example of how to set your drag. So I'm going to loosen this drag up all the way, and you'll see how easy that line comes out. That's a little too loose, but I'll reel it in here. I think I will. Let me tighten up that drag. I'll reel it in here. And I tightened up the drag just a little bit. You want just enough tug. That's still a little bit light. Let me tighten her up there. You want just enough tug. You want just enough tug. That's actually a little too tight now. Just enough so you can hear that sweet sound. There it is. And a good pull, but you want to be able to jump over and be able to shut that drag down, and then you're fish on. So not too light, not too heavy, somewhere in the middle so you can jump over and get there. Go back there. So I talked quickly about the speed of these rods. Those of you old timers that have been around, you know, back in the fishing back in the day with your rod and the rod holder, and you got your Dave Davies and your Dodger, all the big flashers on there, and you don't even know if you got a bite. Maybe there's a little tug at the end. And, okay, well, let's reel it in, and you're reeling in everything with it. That game has completely changed, and that's why we've moved to these fast action, good, medium, heavy strength in the middle, so we get a nice, good bend. You know, you get into a nice 4 or 5 pound trout with 8 pound leader and 12 pound Leadcore, you're going to be in for a while. Example, we caught a nice 6 pound cutthroat last year. It took me almost 25 minutes to bring him in. But the thing about that was it just changed the game. You get the bite, you feel the bite, it's a hard bite, it goes, you pick it up. A lot of similarities to fishing in the ocean now with freshwater fish when you're using this lighter gear. Okay, so casting techniques for the Mook. Here's our spinning rod. With line size, we generally recommend for our smaller Mook with 4 pound line, but you can go as high as whatever you need to. Our bigger ones, we recommend 6 to 8 pound, but we recommend 3 retrieves. The first one is, we call it, what do we call that thing? The 3 and drop. And it's 1, 2, 3 as you're bringing the tip of the rod up, and then drop. 1, 2, 3, tip of the rod up, and drop. 1, 2, 3, up and drop. The cool thing about that is it happens on the drop. While those flutters are coming down, you'll have to watch your line, because that's when the pickup will happen, and then you set it. So a lot of fun. We've had a lot of good results with that. The other one is cast it out. This one we picked up from our Apollo rep, who fishes big CD plugs, you know, the CD11. And his technique is while you're reeling it in, cast it out, you just always wiggle the tip while you're bringing it in. So it's wiggle the tip, reel it in, reel it in. All the way in, and do it again. That way our little clickers are fluttering in and out the whole way through. And then finally, just a nice fast retrieve, depending on where you're at, if you're in a creek, stream, wherever, you know, play the conditions. Because really, the idea is to get those clickers rolling. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the biology of fish and their sight in the water. So objects in the first 10 to 15 feet of water, especially clear water, that lure or whatever bait you're throwing, those colors will be real, they'll be true. But as you get deeper, red and orange begins to disappear. It gets absorbed in the water. Red and orange go first, and then a little deeper, green and blue go. And what happens is trout have ultraviolet vision in their eyes, and ultraviolet colors last the longest and the deepest in the water. So different bodies of water, especially like if you're fishing saltwater or freshwater, there'll be a big difference in there. But again, as I mentioned before, trout virtually can see only ahead and above. So if you're fishing below them, doesn't matter what you're throwing, they're not going to see it. All right, so this is where we get into the true biology of the fish. Here's a lateral line of a fish. You can really see them on bass, but every fish has it. The idea of that lateral line is it's a lot like the human ear. In the human ear, it's for them to detect movement, how we do. We look, we hear something, we look. They're the same thing. And they feel vibration through that. And then finally, pressure gradients as they go up and down, they can feel that with the lateral line. And that's where our lure comes in. Is those little clickers are really going. So it's more than the color, it's the vibration into this lateral line that really triggers and mimics a bait fish. And like I said earlier, our baits probably catch more fish than others, but the big factor in it is the bites are much harder and much more aggressive. Even as you go down in the water, even ultraviolet light will absorb, and eventually fish just see a silhouette. That's what we want to see. That's what they'll see. So we'll talk a couple of our lures. Here's what they look like in just regular ambient light. And now we flash the blue on them, and you can see there's a light up real nice. So that gives us a good color at depth, which we really appreciate. And kind of gives us another advantage. So it's not just the ultraviolet light with that, but it's also our noise and vibration with the clickers that really sets us apart. So finally, if you look on the screen here, this is our Mook. Here it is. What makes this great? Our hanging clickers down here. Excellent for all game fish. We've had people pursue game fish across the country. In the Midwest, especially chasing muskie and pike, they wanted a bigger. They said, hey, your bait is great, we love it, but we need a bigger one. So we did produce a bigger one. Freshwater, just awesome bait. We want you to have it in there. Really any freshwater in lakes and streams in there.
What size do they come in?
Oh, we come in two sizes. Our original is the 1.5 inch, which is 1/5 ounce. And our bigger one that we have right now is a 2.5 or 2.5 inch, 2.5 ounce. Great question, thank you. So also down here you'll see from those guys in the Midwest, now that we've been actually attending fishing shows and stuff along the coast, guys have been taking our bigger one and fishing the bays with it and dropping it down, getting sandies on the bottom, trolling on the way out. You hear that? A lot of guys took a chance and said, hey, this might be fun to bob off the bottom with halibut, whatever. So there's our sizes, great for trolling, but here's the thing. We're made with strong, durable components in the United States. We're extremely proud of that. No lead, nothing to contaminate the environment. We've even supported by our Save the Turtle Foundation. They appreciate that we're using turtle-safe supply materials. So we want to thank some of our sponsors who really began to carry us early on, and we really appreciated that. Bob Sands, Kittredge Sports and Mammoth, Mulligan's and Big Bear. Of course, Ernie's Tackle and Ski, where it all started. Special thanks, thank you, Jeremy. June Lake Marina, Lake Gregory, the Fishing Pools, Big Bear Sporting Goods, the Trout Fair in Mammoth, and Silver Lake Resort. So we want you to shop locally. And hey, if your tackle shop isn't carrying the Mook, go in and let them know you want the Mook. Please visit Mook.com. My son does an incredible job. He's monitoring it 24/7. any information you want to need. If you know anybody who wants to carry our bait, we're in all these stores now. We're excited about that, but of course we want to be in more. Yes, sir.
Am I able to get these online as well?
Of course. Like I said, my son monitors that 24/7, and he'll pretty much ship everything out that day or the next at the latest. And all of our baits, all of our colors, our swivels.
Website.
And the website is mooklure.com. Mooklure.com. And we want to. So I just want to tell a real quick story about trout fitter up in Mammoth. I went in on a cold call and asked if they wanted to carry the Mook because we were having success in different areas, especially in June. If it's doing well in June, they'll do good in Mammoth. They kind of, we're a trout shop, we're a fly shop. Well, they do have a lure wall, but they're 2 weeks later, we get a call from trout fitter. We need the Mook. And they bought the whole line and got them in there. So,
sure.
And don't forget, we have our active wear, we have our UV protective shirts over here. We also have the shirt I'm wearing. Our swivels, so we want to make sure, I think we have beanies and sweatshirts, all kinds of great stuff. So please visit us at mooklure.com and get your tackle shop to carry us. Thank you, and Mook loves you.